Van de Vries. We met with him in a study tour. He made nicely organized us from 5, 4, 6 different countries together in one room. He's an expert of the Cold War. He works in the Heritage Agency under the Cultural Ministry of Netherlands, if I'm correct. But for me, the fantastic lesson and experience was he keeps together the international Cold War network, and that I think is very, very successful, and thank you for doing it. This is how I met you. And the floor is yours.
Good morning to you all. Can you hear me just in the back of the room? I hope so. Thank you, Asnata, for inviting me and to give me the opportunity to deliver a small speech on the Cold War heritage. We had a lovely study tour yesterday, and we were visiting, according to me, very interesting historical sites about war and occupation. Quite difficult heritage in a way. I mean, how can you present in a balanced way what is so-called right or wrong? And maybe there is no right or wrong, there's something in the middle. So it's an effort to present it in the right way. Looking at different narratives and different perspectives is also very relevant to do. I'm not only a fan of telling stories, but also of putting up as many signs as possible. I love signs, I love plugs, I love information signs. And yesterday we saw some signs, you presented them, and I think that's good because you present a context. Cold War heritage, according to me, is not only local or regional or national, but it is also cross-border. It is European in a way, and even global. So we have to present it maybe in a bigger context, and we can learn from one another, from each side of the Iron Curtain, learn from one another, and learn to remember the Cold War. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. The Cold War ended, in my opinion, when the Soviet Union collapsed. It collapsed in 1991. And it started, one could argue, with the droppings of 2 atomic bombs in Japan in August 1945. So there's in between 45 and 1991. And as you can see at this cartoon, Stalin was our enemy. And we have this enemy image. If it's wrong or not wrong, this is what we were presented at school, in the newspapers, everywhere. And of course, people were victims of it. And I'm intrigued by the big question mark in France. So you can find also Latvia on the map. So the Warsaw Pact troops, they were massive. And this conventional power was a threat to the Western Hemisphere. And in the Netherlands, we put up large barrack camps, at least 7 of them, the same structure, the same architecture, according to the so-called Siam architectural rules, with different functions of living, training, and relaxing. And this was set up in a very short time, in at least 2 years, 2.5 years. Not many barrack camps like this are still there, but many of them are moderated or destroyed. What we also set up in the Netherlands was a very extensive network of observatory towers along our coast. We put up 300 of them, and there are only 20 left. These are landmarks, prefab concrete elements, but not so easy to reuse or repurpose. On top of this observatory tower, there were people standing there. They were part of the Air Observation Corps. And they were standing there in the cold and in the heat with not much shelter. And they had a view, an open view over the plains or the sea or the rivers. And they were trying to look for Soviet or Warsaw-Pact fighter planes. Not one fighter plane passed by, but they were still there and looking for it. And women played a key role in exchanging and assembling information as plotters in the command centers. At certain moments during certain events, people assembled on the top of it, wearing the original uniforms, and they're performing kind of reenactment events. And what is also important on this side is that veterans play a key role in telling stories. I think we can all use veterans more often, more specific, because they are ambassadors, and they can communicate easily with the audience, and they are genuine. They have this experience that you can use, and I think we have to use them more. Another site I would like to explain is the so-called Rhine-IJssel defense line. It's a water defense line. It was put up here. Do I have a lamp? Spot? No. It was Amsterdam up there. It's not on the map. Interesting, this is a map of 1949, and this defense line is not there. So the NATO asked the Netherlands to build a defense line according to this map. It is a 130 kilometers long water defense line, and the key elements in it were so-called floatable dams, castles, and they were sunk in the river, in 3 rivers actually. The first one, you put it here, and then the water goes up north. You put it there, and it goes more up north. And then all the water is assembled, and then you open up with inlays, you open up the dikes, and the area is flooded. A big secret. It was planned by the Ministry of Defense, no one knew. Only the local mayor, not even the parliament was informed. And in real time, if it would happen and it would be flooded, more than 400,000 people would have been evacuated, including livestock. So this will be a big chaos on the roads, because at the same time military units will be replaced. And also we built a defense dike with, as you can see maybe here, you could put here big poles to stop the water. We built command posts like this, or this. It was all camouflaged. It looked like rural barns or rural houses. It was defended by tank casemates. Actually, there were Sherman tanks or Ram tanks positioned in concrete installations. Still there with signs. As you can see here, I love that sign very much. It's informative, it has a good quality, it can stand all weather conditions, and people actually use it, including the QR code. Also this one, this is a position of anti-aircraft artillery. And as you can see, there are biking lanes and hiking lanes. And also, this is the main sign. I like it also very much, and on specific sites. So maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, you know the history behind the site. And also here, reenactment takes place. Veterans or people reenacting and telling the stories to the younger generation. I skipped this one. Another site is this airbase, this American-Dutch airbase Soesterberg. This is the farewell ceremony in 1994. The American Tactical Fighter Squadron leaves the Netherlands after 40 years of being there. And as you can see in the middle, the main building, this is a so-called Zulu shelter. It's a quick reaction alert shelter. It has 2 fighters, F-15 Eagles, standing there with warm or heated machines and ready to take off if necessary. And they, in the night time or for maintenance, they were kept in the shelters in front of it and in the back. They are already gone. Nothing left. This Zulu hangar in the middle, the Ministry of Defense wants to destroy it or put it aside, maybe 100 meters or maybe 500 meters to another site. We protested and we said no, it has to be there because it's very close to the runway, and it is telling the story of how it went, how it. This is the authentic story, but not always easy to communicate with the Ministry of Defense because we have different interests. After the American left, it was reopened for the public, and as you can see on the left top, now you can cycle over the runway for 3 or 4 kilometers, which is quite an experience. I don't know if you ever have cycled over the runway in Berlin and Tempelhof. This is the same experience. And in one of the command bunkers, there's now a presentation about the Cold War. And even on the right down here, you can drive in the weekends with military vehicles, like going up and down with a lot of bumping. And the area, maybe you recognize Asnaat of 2 years ago, is a public park, a national park, where deer are running around and there are protected flora and fauna, because it was 40 years a military site. No one could come there, so there is a certain rare flora and fauna, and it's interesting to keep it. And as Thomas showed us earlier, the other side of the coin, of the medal, is that there were peace protests. And also at Soesterberg. If you try to find today a relic or an item or something that remembers of the peace movement, quite difficult. Actually, I didn't find it. Of course, there are banners, there are posters, there are footsteps, and there are many stories, but actually something in your hand or something to see. During my preparation for the speech, I was thinking about your Baltic way, your human chain in 1988, 89. What is left of this performance, of this act of resistance, of connection? It's very hard to find this relic. I think there's a small monument, but maybe there's more that I don't know. But for the Dutch peace movement, it's very difficult. We have a fence, including a peace sign on it with paint, and actually I would like to preserve it or in a museum, but not easy. There's Thomas and Asnate, because we have so-called special ammunition sites where nuclear, nuclear weapons were kept. We had two. One, this is one, but it was when the Americans left. It was defended guarded by American troops. When they left, the site was not only decommissioned but almost destroyed, except one tower. And this is the tower that is left. And now this site is a lieu de mémoire, and it is used by people to perform dramas or plays or some kind of theatre. The other site is still there. This is the second SAS site, special ammunition site. This is still in the hands of the Ministry of Defense and used as a training site. And at the same time, we as the Ministry of Culture, we would like to list this site. But how do you list a site and preserve a site which is still actually a training site of the Ministry of Defense? So you have to communicate with them. Don't do this, do that. And this is a view from this tower. And as you can see, there are the two, we call it iglo, so the actual storage. And as you can see, there are two fences around it. In the middle, it was defended by and guarded by American troops, and the outside fence was guarded by Dutch troops, mostly conscripts. And they were rather afraid that they would be confronted with people that were there because of the peace demonstration. So, let's get this on. So why am I telling you all this? I work for the Ministry of Culture, actually for the Cultural Heritage Agency, and we made a report. This is the cover of the report, and we said the heritage of the Cold War is not well presented in our list of national monuments. Can we do something about it? And I made recommendations to our minister, and it was accepted, and it was translated into what we call a letter to Parliament. That was 2020. So I was commissioned to start a working group with experts and do research, prepare stories, and select certain sites that has national value. But it's not easy. I mean, how do you choose? Can you use, what kind of criteria do you use to say this is a national monument or not? And we would have a look at military defense works, but also civilian defense works, like we visited the government bunker yesterday. So our approach, maybe it's a Dutch approach, or our approach was a participatory approach. So we didn't want to do it ourselves from so-called ivory tower. We wanted to do it in communication with communities or experts or research institutes or other ministries. And also, we would like to hear what our neighbors were organizing and how they approached Cold War heritage in Belgium, but also in Spain or in Denmark or in Latvia. So we wanted to learn from other countries. So you don't have to invent your own, how do you say, your own wheel. Yeah. And we made also storylines. And I have here this booklet. This was published a few months ago in English, and we present 6 storylines which are, in a way, layer for selecting and validating and actually listing new national monuments from the Cold War. And also in storyline 6, life during the Cold War, what Thomas was talking about, movies, literature, the peace movement, all part of daily life experience during the Cold War. And we made a map with all the sites. There are 3,300 sites on this map. Also sites that already has disappeared. We, on the left side, we launched, 1.5 years ago, we launched a campaign, also on social media, and in Dutch is it, wat deed jij tijdens de Koude Oorlog? Which is, what did you do during the Cold War? And we assembled lots of stories from people, and at least 350, and assembled them on a website. And I think these are the genuine experiences from the audience. And also Koude Oorlog weekend, so events. Open Monuments Day. Probably there is one in Latvia and the Baltics too. This is, people are queuing here, including myself, in front of the entrance of a metro station. And this is a metro station in Amsterdam, Weesperplein. And this metro station was, in fact, also a public shelter. Yesterday I heard a very interesting story told by the guide, and he said 99% of the Latvian people could hide and could take shelter in public buildings or shelters. 99%. I thought, wow, this is a lot. I mean, this is a total coverage, so everyone could be safe. In the Netherlands, maybe we are slow, but in 1990 there was this research. In 1990, only 350,000 Dutch people could actually go into a public shelter. The rest, no shelter at all. Interesting. So you managed during Soviet occupation time.
I think the standards are different.
Sorry?
The standards are different we are speaking about.
Okay. Okay. Anyhow, this is a very interesting moment because there was never a queue in front of the metro station for 2.5 hours, and people all wanted to know how did this public shelter work. And on the left side you can see still the atomic, biological, chemical doors, and you go in. On the left side you change and you are detected for fallout, and on the other side you go out and then you are fresh and not infected at all. And the doors are still there, and also here, this in the middle, there is this big steel door to close off the metro station. So this was built in the 1970s, 73 actually, This is what we call a building in combination. So the government said we need metro stations, and but we have to combine it with public shelter. Very smart. And at schools, and this is one of my last pictures, at school too, there is a curriculum and giving attention to Cold War history, and they raise awareness, and for example, this one. So, in Dutch, Volksoproeren in Oost-Europa. So, resurrections in Eastern Europe. How can you analyze those resurrections? And there's another one, it's about enemy images. So, what is true about an enemy image? Who is behind this enemy image? So, these are interesting topics to share with the public. Yeah. So, my last, it's not a conclusion, but the Cold War heritage of the Netherlands represents a unique and significant chapter of recent history that is in danger of being forgotten. The secret defense lines, bunkers and military installations that are once at the center of global tensions are now in danger of disappearing from the landscape and public memory. Yet these sites, such as the ones I showed you earlier, these are of invaluable material witnesses to a time when the threat of nuclear war loomed large. They embody not only the technological and military strategy of the Cold War, but also the fears, anxieties, and geopolitical complexities of the era. Protecting and preserving these sites as national monuments is essential, not only to honor the historical significance of the period, but also to ensure that future generations understand the delicate balance of global power that shaped the second half of the 20th century. These sites are not just relics of the past, they are a reminder of the fragile peace that defined the Cold War and the enduring importance of vigilance in preserving history. Thank you so much. I would like to give you a hard copy of our historical.
Thank you so much. Is there a question in the audience? I know that the politics are so shy that this is why we introduced Slido. Is there in Slido?
There was a few questions about young people being involved, but I think you already answered that with your previous slide about the image of enemy and so on and so forth. And I guess those are questions we will combine and we'll talk later on in a wrap-up session. So I think we can move forward and listen to our last presenters. Thank you very much. So it was very, very proactive.
Yeah. How do you think about putting up signs next to historical sites?
Yes.
Especially battlefields.
We try to put up the signs. It's not always easy, and on top, and it's the questions from the municipalities: who will take care of them when the project is over? Who will renew it? Who will pay for them? That's the all questions we have to answer. So how do you do it?